6:37, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk, 89.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Want to welcome on into the program Jonathan Fahey, of course, former acting director of ICE with Donald Trump's first term. Jonathan, always great to have you on. There's a couple of stories, immigration-related stories, that I do want to get to. One, but the overarching theme is this, the demonization of ICE. So Tom Homan is getting, of course, borders are, he's getting absolutely blasted in the media. The headline is that ICE went in and raided a farm where there was a mom and three kids, throw them behind bars, and they're going to deport them, right? That is what Kathy Hochul, this was in New York, in upstate New York. The governor for the state of New York is saying that this is, a horrible thing to do, and ICE needs to be held accountable. How dare you arrest a mother and three kids who are illegal aliens? Well, Tom Homan, and I'll play the audio perhaps in the next hour, but just to cut to the chase, Tom Homan says this was actually an investigation because another person living on the farm had child porn. And so when ICE came in, when the authorities came in, they found not only the dude with the child porn, but also this mom and her three kids who may have been involved somehow, perhaps even victims of this other guy. So there's an investigation that is going on. But the difference between the narrative and the facts of the case, Jonathan, is what I want to talk to you about, because none of the mainstream media reporting that there is a possibility that these kids were the victims of this other guy who was engaged in child porn. All they're reporting is that Tom Homan and ICE came in and arrested these three kids and the mom at gunpoint, threw them in handcuffs, and out they go. I mean, it's a completely different scenario than what's actually being reported.
Right, and it's such a common theme with the Democrats and with the media to always, the first instinct is to demonize ICE and to demonize ICE agents. And whenever you see one of these stories, whether it's this one or remember the Border Patrol agents supposedly whipping the migrants because they were, for racist motivations, whenever you see one of these, the first thing you should assume is it's either 100% false or mostly false, because they're looking to create a story so ICE stops deporting people. So their whole goal is to keep as many illegal immigrants in the country as possible. So they're looking for these stories, and they're gonna promote false stories or semi-false stories. And remember, Kathy Hochul, if she really cares about people, she could end her sanctuary policies. She says things like she wants to get rid of the criminals, but not the families, like this innocent family. But in fact, they don't want to get rid of the criminals. They have sanctuary policies that keep the criminals in this country. And as you know, and your listeners know, Laken Riley was murdered, and her murderer had been arrested in New York and was released because of their sanctuary policies. So she would be alive today if it wasn't for New York City's policies that were fully supported by her. So it really is amazing. And the Democratic Party is so awful on this issue. I mean, the other thing that just came to mind, remember Kamala Harris comparing ICE agents to KKK members? Oh, yes. I mean, that's how bad they are. Their first instinct is demonize law enforcement, demonize ICE. And, when the full story gets out, whatever it may be, my guess is that gets about 1/10 or even less of the coverage. So then the American public will only know that first story that came out rather than the full story, which is really the intention all along.
I do wonder, and we always talk about the leftist, mainstream media and so forth. And I guess part of my question would be, because you've been doing this, I mean, you've been commentating on issues for a long time, and of course used to work in the Trump administration. But I guess the question is, why does the media have such a stake in illegal immigration?
I really don't know, other than it's just simply, they're sort of really an arm of the Democratic Party, and they believe, and the Democratic Party believes, and certainly believed before the 2024 election, that massive illegal immigration will help them succeed because they think the majority of these illegal immigrants will eventually vote Democrat, and that's why they're always pushing as hard as they can to make them citizens as soon as possible, and also restrict or not have any restrictions on people voting, so that if somehow they just maybe wanted to vote, there's nothing that will prevent them from voting. And so I think it's really, they're just really, the mainstream media is part and parcel of the Democratic Party, and they think this benefits them. So they are always going to promote it. I remember the stories, they stopped doing them because it became so ridiculous, but they would always do these stories about illegal alien becoming a valedictorian and going on to Yale or something like that. They would always try to promote those types of stories, and but they never mention illegal alien when a horrible crime's committed. When it's a horrible crime, it's simply a Maryland man or a Michigan man, and it's just so funny how the media is just so dishonest and misleading on this issue.
Jonathan Fahey joins us on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I also want to ask you about this story because this is really interesting. And it plays along the same line as the demonization of ICE and Donald Trump's immigration policies, where in Boston, not surprising, in Boston, a judge has actually found an ICE agent in contempt of court after they detained an illegal immigration there when this guy was in court. And so instead of, finding or hearing the case against the illegal alien in this case, the judge actually dismissed the case against the illegal alien and goes after the ICE agent and charges him with contempt of court. It is amazing. So we're going to talk about that story straight ahead, 6:45. I'm also going to ask you, Jonathan, another question, which is, bottom line, has Donald Trump fixed the illegal immigration problem? So those are two things we're going to talk about coming up next. It is 6:45. Time to check the roads on WTN. For today, Friday, high of 84, storms overnight into Saturday and Saturday morning. On Saturday, a high of 80, storms all day. Some of those could be severe. We're watching it for you. Your complete forecast is coming up at 7 o'clock on WTN. By the way, on Sunday, high of 58 and storms. Right now, 60 degrees at WTN. All right, so Jonathan Fahey, let's talk a little bit about this Boston case, because I'm reading this and I must be missing something. So this guy, Wilson Martrell LeBron, appeared in court yesterday, and it was the first day of his trial on charges that he provided false information on a license application, and ICE agents detained him as he was leaving, and the judge decided that he would dismiss the criminal case against the guy and then turns around and holds the ICE agent in contempt. What?
Yeah, this is pretty amazing, because it's like these ICE agents arrested this guy apparently in the courthouse, which is a safe place to arrest people. And the only reason they had to do that is because, as you know, Boston's a sanctuary city, like we just talked about. So instead of doing what they should have done, which is kept this guy locked up under an ICE detainer and waiting until after his trial and releasing him to ICE or after his sentencing, they won't do that. So the ICE agent, the only place they could go to get this guy is go to the courthouse. And this idea they should have to wait around to the end of the trial to perform their duties is absolutely ridiculous. So it's just very funny how the judge is more concerned with this defendant getting to stay in the country, apparently, because it's like, why do you care if if he gets his trial or not, if he's going to be removed? It's not like an overly significant case, and they dismissed it anyway. So the defendant in that case ended up totally fine. But here's the problem. They can't do it. There's, under the supremacy clause of the Constitution, there's something called, supremacy clause immunity or federal officer immunity, that if federal agents are acting in their official capacities and doing something within the general duties of their jobs, like arresting people as an ICE agent, they cannot be prosecuted by state officials, judges, or prosecutors. So this judge is ultimately going to lose this, and you think he should actually read the Constitution. He may not be happy about what they did and how it affected his court, but he really can't do this. And the whole purpose of the Supremacy Clause is so federal agents, or with respect to this, so federal agents can do their jobs and not have some state official that's adverse to the federal government locking up a bunch of federal agents that are out there doing their jobs. A lot of this was, stems from things back in Reconstruction or during Prohibition and things like that, where, the state might have been adverse to the federal government on certain things like they are here. So there's a really good reason for this, and the state is ultimately going to lose. It's surprising that they don't really understand something that's kind of basic law, that they can't do this, but they just want to make a show of it. And they put illegal aliens who commit crimes ahead of their own citizens and ahead of law enforcement. It's truly stunning that they do that, because if the ICE agents cannot arrest people in a courthouse or in a jail, two of the safest places to arrest people because they don't have weapons, they are at greater danger. The community is at greater danger. But these judges, these local prosecutors, don't care because they're Democrat. The Democratic Party again wants illegal aliens, illegal immigration at all costs, and they'll even threaten to arrest federal agents to advance that cause.
Well, and the problem we have, of course, is just expanding that, is we have all of these judges that believe that they have more power than the president of the United States. You're an attorney, I'm not, and you watch these things more closely than I do. But there's a lot of people that are asking. I actually saw a meme where it said that Donald Trump was going to resign the presidency so that he could become a district court judge so that he could have more power than the presidency. In your opinion, are these judges, just real quick, are these judges way out of bounds in overruling what the president's policy is?
I think as a general matter, yes. Can't speak to every individual thing, but when they are getting involved in things like foreign policy, how the president makes determinations as to, what's a, predatory incursion, what's a terrorist organization, what's a threat, when they're telling them to turn planes around that have dangerous people on board, they're overstepping their bounds. They're getting in foreign policy and things specifically assigned to the executive branch. It's, we've talked about, I think before, it's akin, to a judge saying, hey, I don't think you should attack the Houthis because I want to make sure you had enough evidence that they were doing something bad. It's like, that's not their role, even if they have a different opinion on that. So, yeah, as a general matter, I think they're out of bounds. I think particularly the one with the Trende Aragua will ultimately break President Trump's way. It's going to have to get the Supreme Court. He's already lost in the Court of Appeals, but I think that'll break his way. But that is a real problem, is one judge in Washington, D.C. can decide the policy nationwide. That's really problematic, and that's really not what the role of the judiciary is. It's generally things within your district affecting, litigants or whatever within your district, not nationwide, and certainly not foreign policy.
All right, so real quick, I've got 30 seconds. Has Donald Trump solved the illegal immigration problem?
He has solved it by and large for the people coming in, which was the biggest problem when we were getting 7,000 to 10,000 people a day.
Yep.
There's still a lot of work to do to get the criminals kicked out of here, but it's on this issue. He's off to as good of a start as he possibly could have imagined. As far as the deterrence is amazing, and that's probably going to be the most effective part of it. Is people won't want to come here illegally because it's just not worth it to them anymore.
All right, to Jonathan Fahey, always great to have you on. How can people follow you on X?
John for Fairfax, JONFORFAIRFAX.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan Fahey, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Joan Jones is in the WTN newsroom. Joan, what's coming up?
We have some more potentially severe weather that's moving our way, but we will get a break for at least today. We've got the timeline of what's coming next for us in our weather coming up here at 7 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.